Welcome to the Industry Angel Podcast. We hear from the best business minds across the globe. Entrepreneurs, social influencers, marketing mavens, and sales rock stars. We've got them all. Here comes your weekly dose of inspiration with your host, Ian Farah.
Good morning. We are live. I've just asked Tom if he wanted a coffee there, and just before we went live, we threw coffee everywhere, so you can't see that, but behind the screen there's coffee everywhere. So thank you, producer Misha, for spilling coffee everywhere. These are the things that happen before you go live, Tom. It's great, honestly.
I got a cup of coffee though.
You never got all over you. You know, batteries drop out, the laptop will die, the broadband will, but these are the things. This is why we love going live, and we love sharing it with you as well, because now we're live, no pressure, Tom, right? Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn. So let me know where you are. If you are across one of those platforms, what we can do is we can throw your comment on screen. And why don't you put your name at the end? Sometimes when you're on LinkedIn, for instance, it'll just say LinkedIn user or Facebook user. So I always like to know who's there. Even put a little shout out for your company. Why not? Because we're going to have a great, maybe about an hour's discussion today on a really exciting project. Anything else we should mention? Well, of course, who are we? South Tyne Business Invest Team. Tom Nightingale. I do have a round of applause button there. Shall I lean over and press it? Oh, Tom, do us a favour. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Tom Nightingale. I'm the North East Stakeholder Manager for Equinor. I've been living here in Newcastle for the last 20 years and working in the energy industry, and recently started to work for Equinor just in April after working in the supply chain for my whole career.
Wonderful. 20 years. There's still a little bit of a twang there. Where's it from?
From Yorkshire. Leeds.
Yorkshire.
Yeah, originally from Leeds.
Right. Okay. Good. So, well, there's our Carl. Look, Carl's threw a little plug in for his company, Carl's River down the road. So this is what you're going to get. We're going to come on to supply chain later on, you know, maybe job creation and where we can get involved in this project. So I guess we dive straight into the project. And so what's it all about? Why have you been brought in, Tom? Because you said you've started in April. Were you brought in specifically for this particular project?
So I was brought in to represent Equinor and Dogger Bank project. So the project is the world's largest offshore wind farm, and Equinor's building it with our partners SSE and ENI. And it's based about 130 kilometres off the coast of Newcastle. But one thing that Equinor wanted to do on a lot of their projects is start thinking a lot more about stakeholder engagement. And so this position was created, and I was lucky enough to secure it and start working for Equinor.
Do you see how he said lucky enough there? Because his Equinor team will be watching this right now. So, you know, you might get another raise out of that, Tom. Let's go right back then. So I've got a lovely little list here that I'm going to work on, because this is not my strong point. I always used to work in engineering, and we did a little bit about wind farms back in the day. Quick story for you. One thing that we struggled with was the distance from the wind farm to, I guess, the substation, transformers. Yeah. And it's like, how do you get that from there? And I guess that's all been solved now, because, and I don't know if we'll touch on R&D, but I mean, God, this was back in the day. I bet innovation has come on, and no doubt it'll probably keep kicking on as this project grows. You keep learning. It's a new technology. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's always something new to think about. So maybe it's distance from shore, or maybe it's deeper waters. So a lot of turbines are now floating as well, which is something that Equinor's involved with.
Wonderful stuff. Excellent. We've still got people coming in. There's our Jeanette across LinkedIn. So let me know if you're here, and any questions for Tom as well as we go. Throw them up, and what I'll do, Tom, I'll keep an eye on the questions, and we'll grab them at the end. So then, Equinor is going to operate the world's largest wind farm, Dogger Bank, for its lifetime over 35 years.
Yeah, so
from the port of Tyne.
The wind farm will be constructed and all of the turbines installed by SSE, who's leading on the construction phase. And we're going to start to install the turbines around 2023 and finish in 2026. So it's going to take a few years just to get the wind farm operational.
Wow.
And during that process, as the turbines start to turn and produce electricity, Equinor will be operating and maintaining them. And we're building our O&M base at the port of Tyne, so here in South Shields.
O&M?
Operations and maintenance. Good,
man. See, that's what happens when you're immersed in it. It's all the acronyms, isn't it? Yeah, so I'll catch you a couple of times just to make sure that we're not losing anyone, because you just lose me instantly. You said there, is it phased approach then? So we're not going to wait until 2026.
Yeah. So that's when the full wind farm will be operational, but we're doing it in 3 stages.
Wonderful.
So it's Dogger Bank A, B and C, and Dogger Bank A will be installed around 2024 and fully operational, Dogger Bank B 2025 and Dogger Bank C 2026.
Whereabouts is that from here? So we're on the South Shields coast.
So it's basically, if you were just to look directly east, out 130 kilometres, that's where the wind farm will be. And that's the closest point of the wind farm, because the wind farm's actually the size of Greater London.
Really?
It's on an area called Dogger Bank, which used to be Doggerland, which was an area of marshland that connected the UK to Europe.
Oh,
so,
wow.
So yeah, it's funny because now when you look at companies who are doing things like geotechnical surveys and things, they talk about lakes and estuaries at the bottom of the seabed.
Yeah.
Because that's what used to be there.
So size of London, how many turbines will be on that?
So we're installing 277 turbines.
Well, I'm going to write that down.
We actually are installing 95 on each of the first two phases because we're using 13 megawatt turbines. But we upgraded for phase C. So on that phase, because we're using 14 megawatt turbines to achieve the same size wind farm, we can use a few less turbines.
Right.
So we're using 87 on phase C.
So what we're all wondering now is, Tom, will you get on a boat with all your safety equipment on and get out there?
I would absolutely love to do that, yeah. I mean, you see that happening a lot. There's been a lot of publicity over the last couple of weeks. We've had a big conference in Aberdeen. So there's lots and lots of people in the industry who are going out, to see wind turbines operating offshore. But, you need a little bit more time on your hands to go to our wind farm because it's going to be so far from shore.
Yeah.
So maybe a helicopter ride might be better than
How long would it take?
Oh, I'm not sure exactly how long it would take to get there, but
I was just thinking, I've got to row a couple of kayaks, we could always get across there. There you go. People are starting coming out and say, hello, who we got there? What's our call? That's a heck of a potential maintenance issue so far. Well, Carl, I'm sure we'll touch upon that within the supply chain because, asset management, maintenance, even the tooling on the boats, the manpower, the resource to get out there. It's obviously a big thing. Do you get involved in all that in your role, Tom, or is that?
No, that's not my role. So we've just hired an operations director to be based at the Port of Tyne as well. And he'll be overseeing all of the operations and maintenance. But the way that it will actually work is working with a company called North Star, who's historically worked in the oil and gas industry in Aberdeen. And they're going to be building some new vessels, which are massive. They're like offshore hotels, basically. But also they have huge areas for storing, key equipment. And those vessels will go offshore for 2 weeks at a time and be based at the wind farm. But even then, you've got to cover the size of London. So we have some daughter crafts that are on those vessels that can be deployed to maybe go out to the outer areas of the wind farm or more remote turbines. And also, if anything was needed urgently from shore, you don't necessarily need to bring the full vessel back. You can send one of the smaller daughter crafts back as well.
So Helen's asking there, is there going to be a day trip to the wind farm? It might help pay for it, if we
charge tickets.
No,
that's not going to happen.
I just thinking in terms of, where the money comes from this, is there a lot of grants for this, European funded money from this sort of stuff? Or
So the government has its CFD scheme, and this project got record low strike prices in the CFD scheme in round 3. And really the reason for that is that we're doing everything at such scale. We've got the world's biggest turbines. It's overall the world's biggest wind farm. So we were able to reduce costs by doing a lot of synergies of building so many at one time. But in terms of the financing, it was also the world's biggest ever project financing in offshore wind. So it was 5.5 billion for just the first 2 phases, and we'll be expecting financial close of Dogger Bank C, the 3rd phase, at the end of this year. So it's a huge investment, and it is one of the UK's largest infrastructure projects at the moment. And once operational, will be powering 5% of the UK's electricity. So it's like the size of a power station in terms of electricity generation.
No pressure, Tom.
Well, that's not my job. I'll have to deal with the stakeholders. If
you mentioned there about the size of the wind turbines themselves, what we're looking at.
So the size of the turbines in height, do you mean? So yeah,
just to get a
when you've got they've got 3 blades on each one. Each blade's 107 meters long. So if you want to put that into perspective, the Angel of the North's wings are 54 meters. So it's double the wingspan, and that's just one blade. You've got 3 blades. So when it turns, it covers the area of 4 football pitches in size. And when the blade's facing upwards, it's 260 metres tall. And to put that into perspective, there's only 2 buildings in the UK taller than that. One of them's the Shard.
Right, okay. So it's like having shards everywhere, right across a distance the size of the London.
Yeah, 277 of them.
Wowzers. Yeah, well, that's my brain works that way, Tom. Thanks for that. So innovation we've got here. In terms of innovation, I think we've touched upon that as this project goes. I'm sure you'll learn, the team will learn as they go. I guess there's hard specifications though, to get these things. How does innovation work? Is there a team that are dedicated to innovation to keep making sure that maybe not just the infrastructure itself, but maybe the processes, lean processes, the team, how they cover that? Is there a team to do that?
There is. So in terms of operations, once everything's installed and operating, there'll be a huge focus around digitalization and data, because managing all of the data from so many turbines, those vessels, trying to manage which turbines and what priority you should give to any either predictive or reactive maintenance, because there's things like statutory inspections, but there's also, you could have a turbine down that needs fixing ASAP. And obviously, every second that you're not generating, you're also not necessarily making money off that wind turbine. So it's really, really important to try and keep the uptime of the wind farm as high as possible. And I think that a big focus on innovation will be continuing throughout the whole lifetime of up to 35 years. There'll always have to be new innovations to keep improving that. But in terms of general innovation on the wind farm, I've already talked about the turbines. They're being supplied by LM Wind, which is part of GE. And GE's building a new plant down on Teesside to build those as well. So that's really good news for the project. But also, we talked a little bit about the cables before. And because we're so far away from shore, other wind farms have had a different type of cable than what we're using. So you can either have AC or DC. And you know this because you're an engineer.
He's looking at me with a glint in his eye there. I'm like, oh yeah, I know all about this stuff.
So if you use AC cables, the longer the distance, you can have electrical losses. So we've decided that we're going to be the first wind farm in the UK to use DC cables.
Oh, wow.
And that's why offshore we have a converter station. So all of the cables that from each turbine has a cable. They all join together in like a daisy chain. And then they come to the converter station, and there they'll be converted to DC. And then they'll travel the 130 kilometres back to shore. And we've got 2 landings. So we've got East Riding of Yorkshire, Dogger Bank A and B, and also Redcar and Cleveland for Dogger Bank C, which we're sharing that grid connection with Sophia Wind Farm as well. We're cooperating a lot with Sophia Wind Farm. And in order to do all of this, you need the converter station I mentioned offshore, and we're doing the world's first ever unmanned converter station for offshore wind as well. So it's quite a lot of big innovations happening on the project.
Well, just as Debbie says there, truly groundbreaking and all here in the Northeast. So this must be a project for us all to be proud of. Is the people, from a stakeholder point of view, are Europe or the world looking at this?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I think that at COP26 in a few weeks' time, they'll be talking about Dogger Bank. They'll be talking about lots of other things as well. But yeah, I think it's a flagship project for the whole industry. Touching
upon the industry, then you've talked about innovation. Obviously, there's a multitude of things you probably don't know that'll change over these next few years as things change with the R&D team and innovation and stuff. I'm second guessing everybody who's watching right now. How can we get involved? Supply chain, especially here in the Northeast, we've got some really innovative companies doing some wonderful things, really punching above our weight. You've got them all at your fingertips.
So there's a few different things. I'll park the innovation part to start with, but remind me to come back to that. So any supplier that wants to get involved in Dogger Bank project can go to doggerbank.com and register as a supplier with the different products and services. Obviously, we're quite far into the CapEx part of the project, the construction phase, but we are going to be starting to think about operations. We're going to need things like, even services at the operations and maintenance base, like security, cleaning, etc. So, there might be some opportunities for local businesses here in South Tyneside. But we've got companies in South Tyneside already working on the project. There was a great story recently about a company called Metech, who are providing all the cathodic protection, which stops things rusting in the sea. So that's a really nice story. They're based really close to here in South Tyneside too. But also, in terms of the supply chain, we'll be hoping to run a series of events next year, which we'll be advertising, and the supply chain can try and get involved in those as well, where we'll be introducing the supply chain to some of our tier 1 suppliers, because the contracts don't always come from us. In fact, it's much more common that they come from our tier 1 suppliers. So trying to connect the supply chain together is really important for us as well.
I think obviously we saw that with Nissan here in the Northeast, you know, those tiers and almost bringing everyone together as well, locality point of view. How does that look with Dogger Bank being right out, obviously in the sea, and then you've mentioned the ports and stuff like that? How do you manage lots of different supply chain in the Northeast?
Yeah, well, I mean, our O&M base in South Shields is going to be the operational hub of the wind farm. It'll have a huge warehouse. So any parts that we need to store or that are regularly used on the wind farm will all be stored there. Also, that's where all of the people will be based. So we're creating around 200 jobs at the operations base in South Shields. And North Star, who I mentioned previously as well, they're creating 130 jobs for their vessels and crewing staff as well.
Wonderful. You've touched upon something there that Dennis has just brought up there. It's great to inspire young people in education who are considering career choices. Will this innovation require skilling, new qualifications? I know that's on our list to talk about, especially from a STEM point of view. Do you want to touch upon that now?
Yeah, I will do. I think that the whole offshore wind industry is got big expectations in terms of, you know, STEM education, careers. There's anticipated huge growth, more than doubling in the number of people needed. Can't remember the timelines, but not in the too distant near future. The predictions are that the industry will need double the workforce it's got now. The whole industry is working to, you know, try and develop, especially in the local communities. So an example from our project is we're working with our partners on the project. We're investing just in the construction phase £1 million into our community fund.
Oh, wow.
That community fund focuses on 3 main areas. So in South Tyneside, Redcar and Cleveland and East Riding of Yorkshire, we're working with all the local authorities there. And we're doing lots of programs around STEM education. And we're working with each local authority to deliver on the needs that they've told us. You know, we don't want to say, this is what we're giving you, accept it, or, you know, we're not doing it. So in South Tyneside, for example, we're working with the local authority on the transition from primary to secondary school, trying to keep STEM subjects ingrained in people's minds, let them know what careers they can get, not just in offshore wind, but, you know, in any green areas as well. We're also working with them to do things like careers pages to help people coming out of education to find work as well. And also, you know, we want to really promote diversity. So we're going to be doing things around attracting more females into STEM. So there's a program called STEMettes as well. So that's all really positive in terms of STEM, but anybody that lives within the local authority of those 3 areas can also at the moment apply for £5,000 towards the tuition fees. So we're offering 50 scholarships to any university students. And if we get too many applications, it'll be based on closest to the specific postcodes that we've given.
Not the wind farm, surely.
No, not the wind farm. So, for example, here, it's our postcode where the base will be in the port of Tyne. The closest that any students apply will live into there. So, we're hoping to get lots of applications and help lots of university students.
Well, you will do, and from your point of view, you're going to be inundated, you know, your role. I mean, like, so I don't know if you know Dennis there, you know, he'll be dying to speak to you about this. He's really passionate about our young people and education and seeing them come through. He just replied there.
There's one more thing I want to mention on the community fund, though, because I really don't want to forget this. We're also offering grants to community groups.
Okay.
So up to £500 in those 3 areas as well. You can apply. All of this can be found on doggerbank.com, and it tells you, you know, you need to have a proper constitution, etc. But you can find out all of the details there. But it's really nice because we're helping, like, you know, bowling clubs. And, you know, we're hoping to help the local radio station, etc. So there's loads of really nice community projects that can apply if they're based in those local authorities as well.
Local podcasters. You grab yourself a cup of coffee while I look at some of these. Do you want to have a little drink of coffee and give yourself a little break there? That's really inspiring to hear that. You know, I think especially in the Northeast, we are very passionate about our younger people and watching people come through and upskilling, especially around some new projects like this. You know, I remember when Nissan first came in, and a lot of my friends went into apprenticeships in the automotive space. It was new to us in the region, and everyone was kind of jumping on it, and there was a big sort of vibe about the whole thing. It was really vibrant. So do you see that as well within the offshore wind farm? Do you see the Northeast really
everyone's really, really keen to get involved, as you can imagine. And we will be doing things like apprenticeships as well.
Yeah.
Not obviously to the scale of a company like Nissan, because we don't have that many people here, even though we are creating a significant amount of jobs. But we will be committing to a certain number of apprentices per year. We're already talking to local, colleges and universities even, because you can do degree scholarships now. I've been learning all about these recently as well.
Really good, isn't it? Yeah, yeah. And apprenticeships, I think a lot of people think of apprenticeships from 16 to 18 to 20, but you can get an apprenticeship at any time of your life, and go on and do a degree with it. Yeah, wonderful stuff. We actually had on the business talks, we had an apprenticeship talk recently as well. Yeah, it was really good. It's probably worth having a little look at. There's our call there, sharingdoggerbank.com. Thank you very much for doing that. And I'm guessing this is Lindsay back at the ranch just sharing some links to the scholarship and the community fund.
Yeah.
So that's great stuff. How much was in the community fund, did you say?
So the community fund was £1 million during the construction phase. Obviously, that's split between the STEM, the scholarships. The scholarships quite a significant amount, because we're offering that for 50 students. So that's £250,000 in scholarships. And then the smaller community group fund, which is up to £500 for the different community groups.
So in terms of that community engagement, then who does that fall on? This is not you as well, is it, Tom?
Yeah, it is. So that's a big part of my role, actually. So, one of the things that I'm doing on Monday next week, I'm going on Monday morning to a school to do a presentation about offshore wind, doing lots and lots of STEM outreach myself. So a big focus for me will be doing that in South Tyneside. Right. But I'm a STEM ambassador anyway, so I can go to any school. So I'm going to schools all around the region. And the school that I'm going to on Monday is actually in Teesside. So, we're having a huge impact right across the northeast of England, from here in Newcastle and even up to Blythe. Our turbine blades are being tested in Blythe, and then right down to East Riding of Yorkshire. So, we're touching a lot of different communities.
Yeah, in terms of going to schools, what's scarier, going live like this or speaking to students?
Speaking to students, really young students. Some of the questions that they ask you are amazing and really unexpected as well.
Yeah. Right then, where should we take this then? So we've also touched upon the operations and maintenance base at the Port of Tyne. What does that look like in terms of size? Have you took over? Because that's starting to really creep out, that Port of Tyne.
So, we're going to be on the Clean Energy Park in the Port of Tyne. They're just doing all of the key works at the moment, because the vessels will be pulling up right outside of the O&M base. The O&M base, if anybody's looking to work in an amazing building, it's designed by local company Ryder Architecture. It's sustainable. It's going to have like solar panels and EV charging bays. It's going to be a really, really nice place to work, with a gym. Are you situated there?
Of course. I thought you would be by the sounds of that.
No more working from home when that gets opened.
Wonderful. So in terms of scale then, the Port of Tyne, how does that look at the moment?
So that site is all just being levelled out at the moment, and all of the preparatory works have been completed at the Port of Tyne, and we'll be starting our construction in the next few weeks. So we've just announced this week that the building's designed with net zero carbon emissions, so this is great. And we're working with a company called B&K, who've got offices in Sunderland close by as well, to do the construction.
Touch upon that, the supply chain. Anyone that's sticking out? Anyone that you can give a shout out to? Anyone that you've got a nice little case study or a story where it's...
Yeah, I mean, we're working with quite a lot of different UK suppliers. We had the METEC one in South Tyneside I recently talked about. We also had a really nice story about a company called Granada, who are providing all of the different cranes, so over 200 cranes for the wind farm as well. Wow. So there's loads of different companies popping up all the time. I'm friends with some people at a company called Techmar Group, and they have a company called Ryder Geotechnical in Newcastle, who also just did all of the geotechnical analysis for the wind farm offshore as well.
So you go on to, in terms of supply chain, was it doggerbank.com? You can
register at doggerbank.com,
So, in terms of tiers, how would that work? So, a smaller company, would they supply to one of the tiers, which would then supply? And
so all of those companies that I just mentioned didn't get a contract from Equinor.
Okay.
But they are working with our tier one. So last year we did a series of events with 10 of our tier one suppliers, where we introduced them all to tier two and tier three suppliers. as well. So that was for the construction side, and that's why we're going to try and do that for the operations and maintenance activities as well during 2022.
We'll have a little break about innovation. I want to throw something up that Carl mentioned earlier on, and I don't know if you do get any questions around this. Carl said, can we maybe touch upon at some stage the impact of wildlife, especially seabird flights crashing, considering the overall size impact of obviously the wind turbines?
There's a lot of work being done in the industry at the moment,
right,
and you have to do lots and lots of work to prove that you're minimising any impact. There's been instances of birds flying into wind turbines in the past. There's also the fisheries we have to work a lot with, because obviously it's their turf that we're
of course
that we're going into and putting turbines in the ocean where they would typically go and do fishing. So there's lots and lots of activity happens, and there's even activity with things like the MOD, because wind turbines can have impacts on radar.
Right.
So there's a huge amount of different industries that we have to work with. But obviously wildlife is one of our biggest concerns. You actually find that often with the support structures of a wind turbine, they can become habitats.
Really?
For wildlife as well. So something that you wouldn't expect. It's an area that suddenly appears for wildlife to live and hide around.
Of course. Paul just mentioned something there, reinforcing the move to net zero from a supply chain point of view.
Yeah, I mean, what we're doing is where obviously offshore wind is sustainable. It's green energy, but that's why we're also doing things like our vessels from North Star are going to be hybrid, so they're going to be able to charge when they're in land and use battery before they switch to using any or causing any emissions. They're also really well sustainably designed. The same for the base, like I mentioned. We're trying to make all aspects of the project sustainable as possible. And we do have expectations of the supply chain as well. So I think when we're doing tenders and things, we look at CSR and ESG and things like that.
What have we got here then? Service operation vessels.
That's the vessels I've just been talking about from North Star. These vessels are state of the art. They're actually being built for the projects. So we're chartering them for a period of time, but North Star are building them. And the daughter crafts that I mentioned before, they're getting built in the UK as well. So that's great.
Yeah, it certainly is. UK, you mentioned there. So I'm guessing, some of these projects is about like trying to keep things local, but, you can't always keep things local. But, this is a project for the UK as well. Just because it's based up here doesn't mean it's just, local only kind of thing. How does that work from a supply chain point of view? Are you trying to keep things local or?
Yeah, so I mean, we're working with an international supply chain. We're, on this project, we're doing many world firsts and many of the world's biggest. So we're working with a lot of well-established players in offshore wind, and some of those are in the UK and some of those aren't. So I think that with the GE facility, where the anchor project for that new factory on Teesside. So that's a really big story for the project and for GE and for offshore wind in general, because those are long-term jobs. There's nearly 3,000 jobs associated with the project, either in construction or into operations now. A big portion of those are associated with the facility that GE are building. And like I mentioned, a few of those other stories, we keep seeing more UK companies getting involved in the project. We do a lot of work with our tier one suppliers to promote them where possible to use UK suppliers as well. And that's all written into our documents, etc. It's something that we've actively said in our supply chain plan that we will promote that. And when I mentioned the supply chain plan there, that's something that we discuss with government. So we've made certain commitments on the wind farm. Some of them are around UK content, and some of them are around skills, some of them are around innovation. And we report back to government the progress that we're making, and all wind farms do that. So it's a really great way of being able to demonstrate that you're trying to do where possible to work with the UK, but not just work with UK suppliers, to advance the UK offshore wind industry in general.
That's not good enough for Carl. He's talking about the GVA impact. We've got any figures?
I don't have the figures for GVA impact. Should make a note of that.
Do you know what it is? I don't know how you would even, start, with such a... Do you look at other projects around the world and try to use a bit best practice and look at what, maybe they did good and bad and feed that into Dogger Bank project?
Yeah, obviously we've got people joining the project at the moment from Our operations director's just joined us. He's worked on Teesside offshore wind farm. He worked on Blythe wind farm. So, real positive experiences of working in recent wind farms that can be applied. But then we've also got our digitalisation manager. He's joined us from a large Norwegian oil rig that uses lots of electrification and digitalisation.
Yeah.
So we're trying to transfer skills in from other parts of the energy industry, like oil and gas too.
Wonderful.
And our operations leader, we've just employed a female operations leader who's joined from the Mariner project in the North Sea. So we're trying to employ, where possible, as many people as we can from the local area.
Yeah.
But we're also trying to bring in lots and skills of expertise, not just from offshore wind, but from other areas, because we really value the experiences in other areas of the energy industry. And that's one of Equinor's strengths, because we started in oil and gas, but now we're working on projects like Dogger Bank. Yeah. We're also working on other projects, especially in the Northeast, actually, like Net Zero Teesside. We're also working in the Northern Endurance project, which is carbon capture and storage. So there's lots and lots of ways that we can transfer skills and knowledge and experience within the company to help us benefit our operations.
In terms of Equinor, what does that beast look like? Are they global?
Equinor's a huge multinational company. Yeah, we're in countries all over the world. In offshore wind, we're working on projects in the US. Yeah. We've got projects in the UK. We've got projects in Germany. We're now going to be starting in Poland as well. And we're also looking at projects in Asia at the moment too. So just in offshore wind, we're global. Yeah. And then we've got all those other areas I mentioned too.
Yeah, no, the first thing that I was thinking of is, obviously you've got colleagues across, around the world, pulling in resource and, the best players to make this, obviously, this is a real flagship project for you all. Yeah. So you might see people come from all different countries.
Yeah, we are an international project, but we are trying, as we move closer to the operations, we'll be focusing a lot more around the local area.
Right.
With GE, who are not just our turbine supplier, they're also our service and warranty provider. There'll be a large number of jobs like wind turbine technicians coming up.
Right. Okay.
And so, we would hope to employ lots of local people to be involved with those type of roles.
It's really interesting. So, you'd have a younger generation coming through, coming at the end of their schooling and maybe looking at apprentices, but they don't know what a wind farm technician is. Whose job's that then?
Well, actually, a lot of them do. You would be really surprised at how many people already want to be a wind turbine technician. For example, when I'm doing my STEM outreach, I've been going to places like South Shields Marine College. Yeah. So they're really engaging with North Star at the moment, which is great because obviously they'll probably be looking for cadets and things, which can come right here in South Shields. But even around the area, we've got things like Newcastle Energy Academy, and they train people to be wind turbine technicians. Right. Like they do apprenticeships in wind turbines. So that's actually a full course. And later today I'm going up to Blythe because they're doing an official opening of their wind turbine training facility, which is a port training services up there. So there's a huge amount of existing supply chain and training and skills providers in the region, and we really, really want to work with them on the wind farm. So that's a big agenda action for me to try and make sure that they can find a way into the project.
That's really reassuring, because where I was going with that was like, you don't know what you don't know, obviously, and if families are children themselves aren't aware of this stuff, then that's on you, I guess, then to get
that's why we're starting with primary school children too. If we're going to be here for up to 35 years, we want to promote STEM subjects, and we're not just promoting offshore wind as a career that you can get from learning STEM subjects. But if we can promote an offshore wind now, then we might have lots and lots of young people that think about that as their career when they finish school in 10 or 15 years' time.
Yeah, brilliant. There's a little plug there for you. The Enterprise Advisor Network is a great program which looks to bridge the gap between education and business.
Yeah, I'm an enterprise advisor now, but I haven't been assigned a school yet.
Right.
So I might get assigned one in South Shields, but even if it's just somewhere else in the Northeast, that's a really good way of helping people to understand. And it's not just helping the students, it's helping the teachers to understand the type of careers as well. So it's really working with a school to help them. And that's something I'm looking forward to getting involved in.
That just made me think that's great. Also, what about existing businesses though, who, I don't know, might have an idea, maybe something like my business, I've been here in the business centre at 1 Trinity Green. If I had a great idea, but maybe I couldn't take it to fruition because the capital wasn't there, how could I approach somebody and say, I've got this really good idea for innovation? Like, what would happen?
Well, this is why I told you to remind me about that point of innovation before.
Right, okay, there you go.
So we do a few things. So every offshore wind farm provides money to the Offshore Wind Growth Partnership.
Okay.
And that's a UK-wide initiative to try and provide funding for offshore wind. But locally, some of that funding has come. We've also some funding from the north of Tyne Combined Authority, and they're working with the Catapult, which is the offshore renewable energy catapult in Blythe. So we're really lucky to have this global facility here in the northeast of England. Equinor's working as a delivery partner to try and help find companies and allocate which ones should receive funding based on their ideas. And a lot of that is moving not just into construction, but into things like digitalization, robotics, things like you might need to do an inspection by having a robot crawl up the turbine while it's turning. These things are really, really exciting advances, and they're not typical offshore wind things. It's like things like robotics and digitalization are something that people might not necessarily associate with wind farms, but they're definitely growing in importance.
So is that something you've got to do, Tom? What you're tasked with? For instance, would you go to conferences, walk around stands, look at what people are doing? You might see someone who's doing some great stuff with VR about maintenance without the need to go out there and train people. Do you have to keep up to date with stuff that's going on?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I need to keep up to date because I need to be the person that tries to connect those suppliers with Equinor as well. Yeah. And I mentioned doggerbank.com before, but people should connect with me on LinkedIn as well. I'll try and have a conversation.
Are you sure you want to throw that out there?
No, I'm happy to do that. I'll try and have a conversation, find out, see if I think it's appropriate, and then I can even try and do introductions within Equinor if I think there's a strong chance of us working with a supplier. But otherwise, register on doggerbank.com. And also, it's not easy for everyone to be on Achilles because there's a cost associated with it. Yeah. But for bigger suppliers as well, if you're registered with Achilles, you might actually see live tenders coming up on there. So great if you are. So
in terms of LinkedIn, then, do you post content around opportunities and things?
So we'll be promoting on LinkedIn any events that we do around the supply chain, any events that we're appearing at. So, for example, we're going to be at Global Offshore Wind in London in a couple of weeks' time. And I'll be on the Equinor stand there as well. So the first day I'll be walking around meeting people, and then the second day I'll be on the stand. So, anybody that happens to be at Global Offshore Wind, come and introduce yourself.
Excellent stuff. So how many hours in the week are you doing this?
So that's just 2 days, but
it sounds like a big role.
My role is really to try and meet stakeholders, and that can be, industry, supply chain, academia, all of the schools. So, I spend most of my time just having nice conversations about offshore wind with people who are interested.
Sounds marvellous. What have we not covered, Tom?
Well, I think we've covered most things that I wanted to talk about.
We went through all our bullet points that we wanted to get done today.
Yeah. Do we have any more questions?
Nothing on the screen just as yet. So if you've got any questions for Tom, feel free to pop it in. What we got here from Eddie. Eddie's a former guest. We have some fantastic new portable power suitcase batteries ideal for remote locations.
Well, I don't know if that would ever be required on the wind farm, but batteries seem to be the future at the moment. So yesterday I was at an event with the chairman of British Volt.
Right.
So interesting listening to him talk about battery technology and electric vehicles as well. So I'm sure that the Northeast isn't just going to be leading in, offshore wind and the energy transition. I think we're going to be leading in electric vehicles and battery technology as well.
Yeah, Eddie's just around the corner there at Cellpack Solutions. He's been a guest on the show before, and some of the innovation that those guys are doing is marvellous, and it's right on our doorstep. It's literally, you can see out the window. How do you feel about that then, Tom? Because again, you might not know these companies exist. How are you going to go about finding everybody?
Yeah, well, I am quite well connected with existing energy suppliers. So I work really closely with Energy Coast, which is the offshore wind cluster in the northeast of England, and that's run by NOF. And so we know them really well. They're really great at doing introductions and connections. Almost every day I receive an email from one of the NOF teams saying, "Oh, Tom, this member's asked if they can be introduced to you.
Okay.
Can you get in touch?" So that's great. That's always a good way. But I know that people aren't all part of that organisation.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm trying to do things like this, working with other groups like RTC North. And it would be amazing in a couple of years' time to say that somebody watched something like this and now, an SME is working on the wind farm. So
I'd love that. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, and that's why we're doing it. That's why the Business Invest team want to get this kind of opportunity out to people to learn from. If you've enjoyed it, make sure you like this sort of stuff. Tom, we've only got 3 likes. This is not good enough.
I'm sure more than 3 people.
Show like Tom the love. There's our Gren there. I'm going to throw this on screen. Gren, I hope you're feeling better, my friend. What type of opportunities do you think there might be for smaller local businesses?
Well, hopefully when we think, it really depends what you do. But when I think about the services at the O&M base, which is just at the port of Tyne, I'm sure that there's a large number of businesses around here that already work with the port of Tyne and the businesses there. So it would be really nice to see, depending on what we need there, we'll be needing things like stevedoring, which is loading and unloading the vessels. We'll be needing security, catering, cleaning. So I imagine we'll be looking for people close by to help us with those rather than, anybody out of the region. So I think that those will hopefully be some nice opportunities. But like I said, METEC providing cathodic protection from here in South Tyneside, it's amazing to see, a company like that involved in the world's largest offshore wind farm. So I'm hoping that we get more and more stories like that.
Yeah. Helen's just said there, Tom's been a great guest. Wow. Nice touch. Helen, I hope you've liked this and clicked share as well, so that goes into your network so people can learn more about the project. My old railroad colleague there, Andrew, said the Northeast was always a world leader for electricity. Yeah,
well, one of the things that I always like to talk about is the industrial heritage here, and now we're facing the green industrial revolution.
You're right. Okay.
And I think that the Northeast will lead in just the same way now that it did then. And one of the best things about that is, and this is a real positive from offshore wind, is lots and lots of the coastal communities where offshore wind farms are now being built off the coast are now benefiting massively. And a lot of those communities have seen a huge amount of deprivation because they maybe were shipbuilding towns, etc. So I think it's not only, helping in terms of green energy and meeting net zero targets for the country, but it's also really, really helping to build back in some of those communities.
This is not visible then from the shore, no?
This will not be visible. Yeah. So people, you go to Blythe and you see the 5 turbines there. Yeah. But this is going to be far too far away.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just going to quickly read this one from Paul. How about utilising the technical and tactical capabilities being used to support the UK's international engagement on renewables? Loads of need to take forward all the aspects Tom has talked on.
Yeah, well, I think that we are leading the world in offshore wind. We have more installed capacity than anywhere else in the world, and we have obviously a huge supply chain already established.
Yeah.
And the government are actually huge supporters of offshore wind and are really trying to help. And we work with lots and lots of groups like the Department for International Trade on promoting companies overseas. So I used to work for a company called JDR Cables, and we did lots and lots of overseas visits promoting in places like China, because we were trying to take advantage of the skills and expertise that had been built up in the UK. But another thing that the government's really trying to do is attract more inward investment, like the Blades facility at Teesport. Teesport is great because it's part of the Freeport. It's got a huge amount of land where people can come to as well. But, places like the Port of Tyne have huge areas of land as well that people could come. And there's some big gaps in the supply chain, like export cables, for example. There's no company in the UK that makes those.
Right.
So when you're thinking about UK content, we want to be able to buy everything on the wind farm from the UK. So it's really up to the government to intervene and support and attract those companies to the UK so that we can build as much of the wind farm as possible using UK suppliers.
And in terms of government support, is the links there?
So government support, they have an offshore wind acceleration program. So there was an example, Smulders on the north side of the Tyne recently received a huge amount of funding so that they can advance their capabilities in offshore wind. But there is funding available for smaller companies, and that's where you need to think a bit more about things like the Offshore Wind Growth Partnership that I mentioned before, and the program that we're supporting specifically in the Northeast is called the TIGOR program. So it's Technology Innovation for Green Growth in Offshore Renewables. Glad I remembered that.
No, well done. Lots of acronyms, lots of partnerships and industry bodies and that sort of thing. I think we should just all hook up with Tom and just tell him, what we need, and then you can navigate the waters, pardon the pun, of what people need. Carl says there, we need to make a much bigger thing of this in the Northeast. It puts us on the map. Yeah, I mean, from a PR point of view, how does that work?
I mean, we are trying to do that, but it's we all need to come together to do it. And I had a really good business roundtable yesterday morning, which was organised by Northeast Times.
All right, okay.
And there was, I mentioned before that British Volt were there, but there was loads of businesses presented who are involved somehow in the energy industry, and we were all talking about the fact that we have this huge amount of capabilities and expertise in the region, and that will all be written up in the next Northeast Times, so look out for that.
Excellent. Did my friend Christopher Owens take your photo?
Yes.
You had your photograph taken?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was him,
Chris,
but we had a photographer there. I can't remember. I was trying to concentrate on the conversation.
Great stuff. And what we got here, a link thrown in the comments there. There's the Offshore Wind Growth Partnership.
Yeah, and just all of this great work by Invest South Tyneside. It's great to work with Invest South Tyneside. They're huge promoters of the wind farm as well. And I think that, this is just the start, this talk today, of working with them as well and helping to keep businesses in the know. We've already talked about doing a discussion with the team that look after the community groups to keep promoting the community fund as well.
Yeah.
So we want as many local companies as possible. No, not companies, but local community groups
of course,
to get involved with that if they can.
I know, just talking to Lindsay earlier on there from the team, and she'd love to have you back, Tom, to see what the next steps are, to see how the project's progressed and just keep up to date. So would you do
I'd love
that?
to come back, absolutely. Yeah, and we can talk about the next steps and what's been happening. So by then we'll be in the construction of our O&M base, and we'll be seeing it to start come out the ground. So I think once people start to see the investment that we're putting into all of these facilities and in the region, it'll be great to showcase that.
Yeah, maybe we can do it live downstairs with everybody.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, that would be awesome, wouldn't it? And maybe we'll get on a boat and we all go out.
Yeah, we'll just tell your producer not to make the coffee.
Yes, Misha, don't make the coffee on the boat. That might go, yeah. So then I think, Tom, we're going to let you off the hook. I've really enjoyed that. It's been really informative. And as I think a lot of our viewers have echoed, they're exciting, very exciting. Pride is something that's came through there. It's for us. It's in the Northeast. You're doing a great job for us and providing for, I think, as Eddie maybe touched upon there, you're here for the long term, I think Eddie said, and that's great from an economical point of view and for our new generation coming through, that there's opportunities there for them.
Yeah, and I completely agree, and thanks for having me. But we're really looking forward to just getting things started, and we'll all keep in touch and try and keep in touch with all the local supply chain as well.
Wonderful stuff. Yep. Everyone's feeling the love for you. So thanks so much for watching, everyone. If you could do us one thing, just give this a little bit of a share, like it. Sure, love's good. Likes are great, but love's good. So get a couple of loves there for our Tom. And like I say, share this into your networks, because what we really want to do is spread this message. We've just been talking about PR there, but it's on us. It's not just on Tom and the team. It's on all of us, as some of our comments have been there. This is our project, so let's shout about it. So thanks so much for watching, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next time. I'm not sure who we've got in the pipeline, but I'm sure it'll be great. They always are. Yeah,
won't be offshore wind.
It won't be offshore wind. No, that's your bag. Right, Tom. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for watching.